It's early 2000. SanDisk, Toshiba, and Panasonic set out to make a new storage medium for photography, and they invented the SD card. 23 years later, and we're still using these things, and I personally use them on a daily basis. Every single camera that I personally own and use uses this storage medium. There has been a few advancements, one of the biggest being the UHS-2 type card, which caused the read-write time to advance drastically. It's September 2023, and this is the new iPhone 15 Pro. Action button and titanium aside, this is the first time I've ever seen footage coming off an iPhone that actually looks like a real camera. In fact, if you watch this video by my good friend Tyler Stallman, you'll see exactly what I mean. Apple Log is now built into this camera, and the biggest issue with the iPhone in the past has been its tone mapping issues. And what is tone mapping? It's essentially what happens when the camera uses its HDR and exposure adjustments in the footage and it bakes it into the footage.
The main pitfall being that when your settings are locked, and I mean your manual settings, and I'm talking about exposure, the image can still shift, which drives me crazy.
Even using apps like Filmic Pro in the past and using their log profile didn't get rid of that tone mapping issue that has plagued iPhones ever since the HDR revolution, if you want to call it that. More like HDR empire that is now crumbled by Apple Log. As you know, the iPhone 15 Pro has USB-C, which allows you to plug in all sorts of peripherals. And in order to record in the Apple Log format in 4K up to 60 frames per second, you have to use an external device, like an SSD. This is the famous Samsung T5. I still haven't picked up the T7, which is the upgrade to this. But this little SSD has changed everything for me. It's one of the most compact SSDs on the market, and it's been used for years now as an external recorder for Blackmagic cameras and other cameras that can support it. Apple themselves promoted the fact that you can record externally onto SSD, and that alone is pretty exciting. I can just plug in the standard cable that came with one of my hard drives and plug it in like so, and record all of the ProRes Apple Log onto the device. The problem is, you have to mount it in a weird way, and you have to carry around a giant storage medium like this. And I think some people will probably make cases with SSDs built into them or something. And yes, this is small and compact, but that's not what gets me most excited, honestly. This is Apple's USB-C to SD card reader that was made originally for the iPad several years ago. Since then, they've updated it to have faster readout speeds, but this is the original. And you can place any SD card into it, like so. And now that the iPhone has USB-C, I was wondering if I can just record onto the SD card rather than carrying around a big SSD everywhere. And this honestly isn't much smaller than the SSD option. But what I love about this is that when I'm done, I can just offload the media like this and plug it straight into my laptop. So this is the phone with nothing plugged in, no SSD, no SD card. I'm gonna go into video, and I've enabled ProRes recording and log here. I'll just turn it off, but I'll turn it on again. And with at least with the phone that I have, the 128 gigabyte, I am only able to record in HD at 30 frames per second in ProRes, and I only have 13 minutes on 128 gigs. If I wanna switch to 4K, it gives me this dialogue. ProRes 4K and 1080p at 60 frames are only supported when recording to external devices. Okay. Well, let's see what happens when I plug it into my T5. Okay, boom. We're plugging into the hard drive. There we go. I have almost no storage on this drive, and I'm not going to format it, but it is working at 4K 30. That's great. And 4K 60, I only have 4 minutes of record time because, like I said, this drive is super full. But let's see what happens when I plug in the SD card reader. Boom. ProRes log is selected. HD 30, okay. 4K 30 ProRes log, max time 28 minutes, 4K 60. And I'm just going to do it right now. I'm just going to push record. Check it out. We are recording ProRes log onto an SD card using a freaking iPhone. How does it look, by the way? Hello. So here is Apple log recording in 4K at 24 frames per second now. And this is the footage that is being recorded onto the SD card. This is a 256 gig SanDisk UHS 2-speed. Again, I'm using the older SD card reader, and it's working beautifully. And here's the best part. I'm going to take my SD card out, put that into the computer, get a new SD card, stick it in, keep shooting, DIT continues working. And just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to record standard. So this is 4K at 24 frames per second. I've turned HDR off, but this is just the basic straight out of camera HEVC 4K footage. I mean, the skin tones have gotten great. The color is pretty good. It looks a little saturated, but you may be seeing some of that tone mapping going on, that kind of fluttering in the background. The exposure kind of ramping around. One of the cool features that I've enabled now on the iPhone 15 that has never been there before, at least in the built-in camera app, is lock white balance when recording. So you can turn that on if you go into the camera settings, because you don't want your white balance to just be warping and changing as you're filming video. You usually want it to stay locked. And you know, honestly, if I am going from point A to point B with different lighting scenarios, I'll just cut recording and just let it do the auto white balance real quick and then push record again. But yeah, what does it look like? We're going to put it side by side next to the Apple log. You can see Apple log versus built-in standard. It's still very high quality HEVC 4K, but you may see a lot of sharpness. You may see a lot of just kind of that HDR-ish effect, even when HDR is turned off. I don't know. Apple log is looking really impressive. And the fact that I can now record directly onto an SD card is fantastic. Is this the way to go compared to this? Honestly, you know, this isn't that big. You can definitely mount it pretty well. Just some gaff tape or Velcro on a case. You know, and this little dongle is kind of floppy and weird. Where I get excited is the future of cases for this. Can you imagine an iPhone 15 Pro case that you just, you know, it's like a hand grip and you slot in the phone and it plugs into the USB-C port. And now because of USB-C, not only can you record to an SD card slot, which, you know, if it was built into the hand grip, say you have a little hand grip like this, I mean, look at that. Look at the size of an SD card reader, you know? If you just cut off that wire, that could be a little hand grip with a little SD card slot right there. Boom, you just stick it in. Micro SD would probably work as well. In fact, let me just try it. I'm going to use the SanDisk Extreme micro SD card adapter. So we've got the micro SD in the adapter, in the SD card reader, plugged into the iPhone. Let's see if it works. ProRes log 4K 24. I only have 2 minutes of record time because this is a 32 gig card. 30, 4K 30, 4K 60. I could get 1 minute of 4K 60. Let's switch to 4K 24. Unable to record to external storage at this time. Please try again. Okay, maybe all this dongle action is causing it to fail. It's probably not fast enough to do this. If I had a proper USB-C to micro card reader, maybe that would work. So let me know if you guys get micro to work. I would imagine it would if you had fast enough speeds all the way around, right? Regardless, imagine a case that has an SD card reader built into it, but not only that, a mic input jack, a headphone jack, and maybe you could even fit a full-sized HDMI port, or, you know, maybe even a micro HDMI would be acceptable because of the small size. I am so excited, and the Apple log looks clean and it's not doing the iPhone sharpness and HDR effects. This is really, really exciting. Lots of filmmaking is about to happen. Lots of little short films that have meaningless voiceovers and nothing interesting, but really cool visuals coming to a YouTube near you.